Welcome to the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District Board meeting. It is Tuesday, February 25th. The time now is 3:35. Welcome to everyone. We've got all the directors except for Director Phillips, but probably she'll, if anything, will come in a little late. So with that, we do have a quorum, so please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you. Right, so with that, we'll move on to public comments. I do have one signature for public comments. If there's anybody else, Peggy, let me know. And if anybody else would like to provide public comments, please sign up. I have email to register Eric Allman. So, Mr. Allman?
My legal assistant, I was just here to address the item and reach the random material, so don't need to make public comment.
Okay, that's fine. Anyone else would like to provide public comments, either on agenda items or non-agenda items? We'll open up. Anyone online? All right, I don't see anybody online. In the chat room or anybody coming out. So, all right, then we will move on. There are no public comments. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Item number 3. The consent agenda are routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion or action on these items unless requested by a board director. Anyone would like to pull anything out of the consent agenda first to separate? We'll all be good. Okay, then I will entertain a motion. We have a motion to accept the consent agenda by Director Semang. Is there a second? Second by Nick. Director Texter. Thank you, Nick. I always have problems with that last name. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. Item number 4, the regular agenda. 4A, announcements. I would like to announce the committees for 2025. They're basically the same as last year with one change. Nick Texter has moved over to management committee and he will be the chair of the management. And then Kay Rogers moved from management over to the infrastructure. And so they just swapped between the two committees. Otherwise, everything else is the same. Mr. Semang is the treasurer of the, so he's chair of financials. Also of financial will be Director Phillips Burgess, Director Phillips and myself. Governance committees, myself, Kay Rogers and Michael Semang of the officers. Infrastructure will be Melissa Cole as chair, Tom Arsufi, Herb Cook and Kay Rogers. Management committee will be Nick Texter as the chair, Herb Cook, Cheryl Smith and myself. And then the education outreach is Cheryl Smith as the chair, Tom Arsufi, Nick Cole, Melissa Cole, Nick Texter, and Claire Marks. Excuse me. All right, so that's the committees. Also want to announce that we have an auditor RFQ that's been posted on the website. So make folks aware of that RFQ has been posted for an auditor. So, make note that Director Phillips just joined us.
Sorry.
Not a problem. We just started 4 minutes ago.
Okay, thanks.
And then my last announcement is, well, there's an LCRA status hearing on March 19th at 9 a.m. And that is basically to get a status update and to finalize a schedule to move forward with a schedule. I guess the schedule needs to be revamped a bit. And so that hearing is on March 19th at 9 a.m. All right, those are all my announcements. Anyone else with any announcement? Okay. Item 4B, we will have a presentation and demonstration of our online database, of the Lost Pines database. With the presenter will be Mr. Sestarti. He's, I believe, a product manager for health. And Matt had provided our staff some training in December on the database and the updates. And I thought that that was a wonderful training session. And I thought that it would be beneficial for the public and for the directors to also get a similar training session. So Matt was good enough to join us remotely. I guess we'll have to make sure that he can share.
Just did.
Oh, great. So Matt, you should be able to share your screen.
Great, I will go ahead and do that.
Oh, a little context while Matt's getting started. So this all started really from the three-dimensional mapping work that LRE did for us. Once they created and finished that three-dimensional mapping, LRE then was, if you recall last year, we approved LRE to go back and validate all of our database entries for the aquifer settings in particular, because now that we had the proper depths of all the aquifers, they could go back and validate where the wells that are registered, where in which formation they're in, and they validated the pump settings and location GPS coordinates, amongst a few other things. So it all started back with getting the three-dimensional mapping done, and then that was provided the groundwork for them, LRE, to validate our database data. And then they provided Excel spreadsheets with all those updates. And then we provided that to HALF, and then HALF took all that data and uploaded our database with all those new updates and all those new entries. So with that, that is the context, and take it away, Matt.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Matt Sestarti with HAF, and I'll introduce you to some of your groundwater management features here. So let's start from the very beginning. You might ask, how do I get there? Well, from Lost Pines website, lostpineswater.org, just scroll down until you see the well database link and click on it. So this takes us to the public portion of the system, which is available to well owners, to drillers, and to everybody else. First, we'll acknowledge that this disclaimer that's telling us it's for informational purposes, doesn't represent on-the-ground survey here. And then what are we looking at here? Well, every one of these symbols represents a well. Each symbol is color-coded to match the primary function of the well, and you can see this legend on the left here. So we can tell, say, light blue is a domestic well, and if we have any orange, that's going to be a test well. So on this map, there's a number of tools and map layers which might be useful to you. For this introduction, we're going to touch on the most important. So let's start by finding your well. If you have an address, you can use this address search bar here, and we can type an address and zoom to it. And so you can see it puts a marker where we were looking for, and we've got a number of wells around it. But better yet, if you have an actual district ID of your well, we can use the search widget. We're going to hide the legend and go down to the search widget. And we can go directly to that well. Or we can just type part of the well ID if we know just part of it and do a search. And what we're going to see is every well that matches this search term will appear. It's going to be highlighted with a new symbol. And we've also got this tabular data. The one we're interested in is this top one. So I'm going to click on it and it will zoom us to that well. And now, since we're only interested in this one well right now, I'm going to clear all of this other stuff out of the way so that we have some more space. Now, what we can do with a single well, well, we might click on it and we get some basic information. such as the aquifer and who owns the well, where it is. Now, maybe we want to put another well in somewhere near. So let's say if we want to drill a well, maybe the water level measurements of this well or surrounding wells might help us determine what we want to drill here. So let's turn on the water level measurement tool. And when we turn this on, all the wells which don't have water level measurements, they're going to disappear. So since this well stayed here, we know that it has at least one water level measurement. And we can click on that. And we're presented with all the water level measurements that we have for this well over time. Beneath it is a little bit more information, but this is showing us the final depth to water for each of those measurements. Another thing we can do, let's go back to the map. Another thing we can do is that might help figure out how deep we need to drill is to look at the aquifer bore tool. So let's enable the aquifer bore. And a grid is going to cover the entire area of the district. Now we can click anywhere in the grid, probably where we're thinking about drilling a new well, and it's going to open up a page that gives us the approximate elevation and the geologic formations, their depths and thicknesses to reach them.
I wanted to add that, I wanted to add that this data that you see right here was updated using the LRE 3D map data. Once we did get the three-dimensional mapping data done, we then, LRE worked with HALF to update this boring tool. So this boring tool is pretty accurate.
Thank you. Okay. Another tool, if you're concerned about distance with other wells, there's another tool here that might be useful to you called the radius rings. For our example, let's just say we want the well to be about a quarter mile away from this one. We can use the radius rings tool. Let's just use our quarter mile. We can click this dot and put a dot anywhere on the map. This is the area where we're thinking about drilling. So let's click a dot here and we can see nothing, no other wells are inside this quarter mile radius. So that might help us out. All right. So far, what we've been looking at is what's available to the public, but there are also some features available to the district staff that you might be interested in seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the test web. Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you go there, can you just touch on the yellow wells? Those are new. So one thing to note, when he scrolls back out, see all those yellow dots, and there's a lot of them. What those are new, those were newly added. What those are they're wells that were registered by the well driller at the state level with the state of Texas. However, they're not registered with the Lost Pines district. So these are, so we've labeled them SDR unregistered. That's what the yellow icon means. And so this gives you an indication of how many wells are potentially out there that are currently still not registered. And there are thousands. There's like 2,000 or more. So certainly this is going to require some effort to validate these wells, make sure they're not duplicate of an existing well. A lot of these could be very well, Jim believes that a lot of these are duplicates. If so, that's great, and we could identify them and remove them. But if not, then that would be a well that we need to reach out to that well owner to try to get them to register with the district.
What do you mean by duplicate?
So they basically dumped the entire state driller's log into our system alongside all of our existing data. And so there are places where you'll see the district well and the state well are side by side. So it's already in our system. There was no deduplication when they were, so basically we have two separate data sets that are side by side in the
Shouldn't
database
that
right
be
now.
pretty easy to call?
We hope so, but there are.
Largely, yes, sir.
It's numerous, though. I mean, there's a couple over 2,000 or 3,000 entries that, but yeah, some of these should be easily, hopefully identifiable because of their location. And then in cases where they're not, we need to have a program in place to reach out to those well owners.
Just register if it's active, or is it just a permit?
These are exempt wells for the most part, so they do not need a permit. But they were drilled and then the well driller registered it with TDLR, the Texas Department of Licensing. But they did not register it here with us. I believe, are they supposed to?
So a lot of these could predate the existence of the district,
Okay.
but everything since the district was created should have been registered with us and with them. A lot of these, well, some of these, what we're gonna find is that the original GPS coordinates that were put in with the state were wrong, and they were corrected at the district level. So we may have two wells that same owners, but they're a mile and a half apart, So there's gonna be, the easy ones are where they're side by side, and then there are gonna be some where they're separated because of bad GPS coordinates. And then there are gonna be some that predate the district that just never got registered. So as we work through this, it's gonna be a mixed bag of all three.
But at least now they're there, they're highlighted, they're identifiable. We can query for them and we can put forth an effort to validate and if not, reach out to the
But some of them
owners.
might not be used.
And who's going to do
Uh,
that test?
Yes.
Well, I heard rumors that, I, I don't want to put Andy Weir on the spot, but I did hear that Andy kind of, one time, I remember him volunteering to help on this. But anyway, it could be LRE, this might be something for LRE to do. I didn't want to put you on the spot there, Andy.
It can be done with time. It's not I mean, it's not pressing priority, but one of those things can be done in downtime or through LRE, so we'll just work through it over the span of the year.
And you're right, some of these may not be, we wouldn't know. Possible, I mean, it's it's possible. We don't know, because these are exempt, domestic.
So some could be test wells, some could be rig supply wells, so they're not all necessarily domestic. And that's part of the sorting process as well. So we'll just have to work through all of it and see.
Okay, Jim. Yeah. Do you have a schedule of updates that we're gonna get as we go through the year?
On the database,
Yeah, and how well you're doing?
this is relatively new, so I haven't even tried.
First, we have to
count.
put a plan, put a plan in place as to who's gonna,
No, that's what I'm looking for. Once the plan is in place,
Yes, sir.
is part of it gonna be updates that we're gonna get?
Yeah,
Schedule of
we'll,
updates.
yeah.
Okay.
we're not there yet today, but we'll
we
get
just
there.
have, this is one of our management plan goals. So if you take a look in our management plan, one of the goals is to register unregistered wells. So it's already in our plan, a goal in our plan. All right, thank you, Matt. Sorry but it was very valuable to get that information out. Thanks, Matt.
Sure. Okay. So we're going to look at what is available to the district. I'm going to jump over to the test website so that if I make changes, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay. So I'm logged into the test website now, and I want to look, we'll start with the query tool. So what the query tool does is allow the district to ask some questions of the data. For a simple example, maybe we'll just ask for a list of water levels, and we'll want to add any fields that are important to this water level. We want to know what well it came from and maybe the date. So let's go ahead and add those. So we'll add our well district ID. We can add our well water level final depth to water. And the water levels measurement date. Okay, and if we hit fetch data down here, and we will see a list. Now, this list has a lot of entries which don't show a measurement, and that could clutter things up. It might not be a very good experience. So let's filter those out. So we can add a condition up here. And this condition will just say we only want water levels which do have a final depth to water. And if we run this again, now this data looks much more usable. Okay, so there are other possibilities with this query tool also. Maybe maybe we want to know permits that are expiring this quarter, or maybe we want to check for wells that are producing poor water quality results. So whatever the case, if it's something useful that we want to share, we can export it to Excel here. Maybe for a meeting handout, or if it's something that we might want to reproduce again in the future, maybe we have some quarterly date set as a condition. We can go ahead and save this under the storage menu. We can save the query and come back later and load it with our new date that we're interested in. So there's another tool that was recently added by the district is the bulk water level import tool. So if we look at the water level import, it can take an Excel file or a CSV file that follows a certain format, and we could have many records, one or many, hundreds potentially, water level measurements for a well or a bunch of wells. And what that looks like, here's two. We have two measurements that we can upload to well 460. So let's go ahead and let's select that file and get that uploaded. And it was imported. So now let's go over to that well and check it out. So if we go to our well screen, we can filter and sort this screen to get whatever we want. I've already filtered it on 460, and this is the well we're interested in. If we can, there's a lot of information up at the top. We're going to skip over it. It's basic information. Where's the well located? Who owns it? How is it being used? But we can come down and see these water levels that were imported. Now we have the 4 that we saw earlier from the map, and now the 2 additional water levels, here they are. So if we had hundreds, this would be a massive time saver, or even just anytime it's going to be automated with a sensor or just regularly taken. It'll save a lot of time.
And that was one of the benefits why the district obtained this tool, is because every year we're gonna have a couple of hundred at least water measurements. And so now they can just bulk upload them into from a spreadsheet and bulk upload all of the water measurements. We're gonna have about 100 monitoring wells twice a year, so that's a couple hundred entries. And also the format of this Excel spreadsheet has been provided to Aqua, for example, and Aqua is giving us their monitoring well data in this format, and then we can just upload the Aqua data for their wells for their water level measurements.
Excellent.
And the other thing is to
Well,
notice,
while we're here,
right now, Matt's logged in as a staff. So what Matt's showing you right now, only our staff can do. This is as if the staff
Correct.
was logged in.
Correct. While we're here, we can look at the production also. So whether the amount of water produced by a well is metered or estimated, it can be recorded right here pretty simply. If we have a new record we want to enter, just click to add a row. When was it reported on? Well, we choose today, and we can enter it in gallons or acre feet, whichever one, it'll calculate the other. So let's enter 2 acre feet. Was this a metered thing or is it just estimated? We really don't know. We still want to record the info and who reported it. We can save this. And now we have that record, and all of this can be found through the query tool also. All right. So water quality is another thing here with our wells. Let's go ahead and add a new water quality report. We hit the plus, and it's going to ask for some basic info at first. We want to know, when was it collected, who collected it, when was it tested, and who did the testing. So let's go ahead and fill out some of that real quick. How was it tested? And save that. When we save that, now we can enter the measurements that we have. So for example, if we have a total dissolved solids of 300, we can go ahead and enter that. And it knows parts per million because that's what we're handling here. And if you want to handle it without parts per million, but some other measurement, all of that can be handled in the maintenance screens. Now, I just want to note here that a lot of labs will send many results, not just a few. So what happens is you want to enter the ones that are important for your district. And then with that file that you received, put it here as an attachment so that you always have that for the future. But all these measurements, this can add up very fast. And again, you can always query for it in the query tool to find out, maybe some wells have too many solids and you can find that area that's affected. Okay. Finally, let's jump over to the permitting section. Select the wells. When we jump to the permits, the search page, we can sort, filter, just many ways. We're interested in this one here. And at the top, we've got our basic permit information. Who's the permit holder? What is the permitted use? How much they're permitted? How long is the term? We have the usual notes. We have the usual attachments. But we've also got all the wells that are a part of this permit. And it's very easy to jump over to the well and then from the well to jump back to the permit that it belongs to. All right. So that kind of wraps up the whirlwind tour. I'll turn control back over to the board.
The last few things that Matt showed are things that the district still is not really utilizing to its full extent. So the water quality, the production numbers, and the permit. Right now, we don't quite really utilize the database to keep that data. So that's something that moving forward is available to the district. The production data, water. I know we're going to start to monitor water quality, so we should be putting that in there. And the permit stuff needs to be validated in our database. Yeah. Sure, Director Phillips, right.
Does this have the potential to move over to the billing system or an audit or into reaching their hourly limits? Is that part of the plan, is to put it into a larger, into a larger program that will control and maintain. Chuck, that's it.
I'm not quite sure. I'll repeat the question, but go ahead.
Is it,
Yes, no.
can you hear me? My question is, this is very interesting and it's great for keeping up with stuff, and if you want to specifically go look at something to answer a question too. It was part of an overall plan to really integrate it with a billing system or alerts, things like that, that will alert you when someone's getting close to their maximum. Like we had somebody that threw out too much water, automate your billing processes and your income taxes.
Okay, so the question, Matt, if it does this tool, this database integrate with billing systems or alarm systems so that if production, say, goes above a certain number, it could alarm you?
Some districts,
Go ahead, Matt.
I apologize. Some districts have customizations which will show them as the production amount nears the permitted amount. But this hasn't been customized that way, no.
So the answer is no, it doesn't have any interfaces to that as of yet. Of course, they're always willing to develop something for, I think for alarming, yeah, in terms of the production amounts and the versus permitted amounts. It sounds like he's already done that for other customers.
Does this have, or could it have, a way to tell which wells have been abandoned and or which wells have been plugged?
So, Matt, I can answer that.
Yeah.
The plugged wells do show up, but all of it is relying on the quality of data that we receive.
Well, right, I understand
Yeah.
that. I just want to know, is there a spot to put it in?
There is a category that for plugged wells. Yes, sir.
I think by, yeah, the use category, there's one of those color, you know, the color coordinated ones. One of those colors is plugged wells,
Okay, good.
I believe.
I believe it's burnt orange, but I don't know. I don't wanna read into that.
Wow, okay.
It should be maroon.
All right, and any other questions for Matt? All right, thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it. So there are still, you know, a few things that we, that the district could take advantage of. Adding our old production data. We have decades, maybe a decade worth of production data in spreadsheets. Water quality data as we start obtaining water quality, and we do need to validate the permit information that's in there, but also old water levels. So right now the district has an effort to gather up all the older water levels, and Jim and Claire are working to gather all that up, and then they'll bulk update that data shortly.
One of the challenges there is that this database changed our numbering system for wells. So everything that we have historically was recorded under the old well numbering system. We're having to cross-reference that to get the new well numbers so it can be uploaded, but hoping to have that first batch done here in the next week or so, which would be at least Simsboro and Carrizo levels, and then we'll move out from there to get the rest of the bulk data up hopefully by the end of March.
So there's still some work to be done on the database, but right now the database is the most complete and accurate than it's ever been as of right now. Thank you, Matt. All right, next item up on the agenda is item 4C. Discussion, consideration, possible action on remand order of application by Rambo Materials LLC. Application number 2022-4177 to Judge Stephen Abels for second preliminary hearing on party status. So in your packet, you should have seen the remand order. That remand order was reviewed by all the parties and their lawyers, and it was agreed to by all the parties. So any questions on that remand order? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I agree with the subject of the order for banning application of Rambo materials to later.
Was there a comment earlier?
The gentleman said that if there was a need for questions, that he would be available. But Mr. Allman, is there anything you'd like to add at this time? Thanks, Jim.
So we just supported the adoption of the order as proposed by your committee to allow this to move straight forward. Once the judge made his decision on affected person status, if he went ahead and found that to be affected, then it would go straight forward.
Yep, and that's in the order.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, motion to accept the order was made by Director Smith.
I'll second.
Second by Director Cole. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. And so then GDHM will then now reach out to Judge Abels.
Yes, sir.
To schedule with the judge his time for this matter. All right, thank you. Item 4D, discussion, consideration, possible action on a resolution regarding legislation to amend the Texas Water Code, Chapter 36, groundwater conservation districts, Gertis House Bill number 1633 and Colchurst Senate Bills number 624. They're identical bills related to the criteria considered by groundwater conservation districts before granting or denying a permit or permit amendment. This bill was skipped or omitted last month when we had several Gertis bills that we voted on a resolution for those. We just missed this one, so as a matter of completeness, this is I believe the last ones that we had missed. Yeah, this has to deal with looking at domestic wells, exempt wells, that those must be considered. So this resolution is in support of both the Colchurst Senate Bill 624 and Curtis's House Bill 1630. Any questions on that resolution? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Director Textor, seconded by Director Smith. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. 4E, discussion, consideration, and possible action on a resolution regarding legislation by Senator Perry supporting the investment in the Texas water infrastructure. This was suggested by our legal counsel since we were supporting Gertis and Colchurst groundwater bills. We felt important to also throw our support behind Senator Perry and his efforts, continuing efforts to support the investment in Texas water infrastructure. Any questions on that resolution?
I
Just read an article from Senator Perry, and he is gung ho to get started. Pipeline system and other projects.
Yep.
Within the state.
I'm sorry, we are not endorsing the pipeline project like this. We're just saying we support more
I'm
money.
not saying that. I
Yeah.
just said that he's gung ho.
Yeah,
Get
Not
started.
correct. We're not supporting any specific item, but the general, the infrastructure fund.
There's no bills yet.
Right.
I would also.
Okay, so the Tribune has on their website an interview with Senator Perry. FYI. They did.
Not everybody.
Sure.
It does away with some of the regular regional planning.
Well, there's a wide variety.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, they can't hear you in the back without the microphone, but yeah, they're just, they're agreeing, I believe. All right, do I hear a motion on? All right, motion made by Director Arsufi, seconded by Director Textor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. All right, then we are on 4F. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on a new export fee bank account. So as you know, the last, or one of the last year's new legislation bills, to a law now, it's a law now, because it passed as a law, allows the districts to set up an export fee, separate, and use that money for scientific purposes and for mitigation. We've backed that law and we've supported it. In order to create the bank account, the bank requested that we have an agenda item and discussion. So this is in order on the bank's request in order to fulfill the bank's requirement.
I'll move.
Second.
All right, so the motion made to have a separate export fee bank account. Motion made by Director Semang and seconded by Director Textor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item 4G, discussion, consideration, and possible action on groundwater management area 12 cost sharing agreement. At the dais, you should have a hard copy of the latest estimate provided at the GMA 12 last week. It was, you'll see letterhead is AGS, Advanced Groundwater Solutions. They're the hydrologists for Brazos Valley, and they are the ones editing and leading the effort for the explanatory report. To summarize, their cost estimate came back for 38,500 total. If you recall, we had initially asked for all the GCDs to equally pay for this on equal proportions, 20% each. We eventually did vote to authorize up to 30%. So that is now, that was discussed at the GMA 12. And the Fayette County asked for time so that they can go back to their board. But the it looks like it's going to be 30, 30, 30 for the big three, for Lost Pines, Brazos Valley, and Post Oak. We would all equally share 30%. And then the two smaller GCDs, Giddings, Texas, and Fayette County, would split the remaining 10%. So it would be 5% each, which comes up to about $1,925. So it's not much. So it seemed like they were agreeable to this. They just needed to, make sure and bring it to their board. So as of right now, it looks like we're on track for 30, 30, 30, and 5 and 5. So we'd be on the hook for 30% of 38,500.
11,000.
150.
All right, so 11,550, but we've already voted on 30%. Nothing's changed there. Just wanted to highlight that we finally did get the cost estimate. And it came back lower than expected, which is great.
So we don't need to take action.
No, I don't think we need to take action. We've already voted on 30%, and it looks like that's hopefully what's gonna end up. We're just confirming it. I just wanted to show everyone the cost estimate that was reviewed.
You as a board had previously approved an interlocal agreement laying out that 30%, 30, 30, 30, 5, 5. So assuming that the other two districts come back, that they're okay with the 5%, then with y'all having already approved the ILA, it's just a matter of having the district sign it. So just finally putting the issue to bed and getting it off the GMA agenda.
Fine.
Yeah, it's been on the agenda for, I think, 3 years. All right, this does dovetail into the next agenda item, item 4H, which is the discussion, consideration, and possible action on a resolution regarding the directives for the district general manager at the Groundwater Management Area 12, upcoming joint planning to develop desired future conditions. Jim, would you like to state some words about that resolution?
We find
One of the items is in the resolution is the interlocal sharing cost agreement of the 30%. There was several other items. So this is basically just to validate and confirm and give Jim direction at the GMA 12, so that he knows exactly what we expect at the GMA 12.
Are we expecting that districts?
Well, not necessarily, but it at least puts our position out there, and hopefully folks will, I think most agree to most of these items. At the last GMA 12 last week, well, Jim, why don't you give us a readout as to the GMA 12 happenings?
I've got that in the GM report, but
Okay.
we can pull that up. Essentially, 4 of the 5 districts more or less immediately agreed that keeping the same DFCs from last cycle was what their board wanted to do. The 5th district was Brazos Valley, and they didn't state from the dais necessarily that they wanted to keep the same DFCs, but they've also voted to that effect in the past. So I believe we're going to move forward, there may be some minor tweaks, but basically keeping the numbers unchanged from the previous cycle. So that's good for us. And that's kind of included in the resolution that you have before you today. Additionally, the resolution speaks to the idea of moving away from expressing the DFCs in terms of drawdown, expressing it in terms instead of remaining artesian head. but not on a district-wide basis, but a remaining artesian head in the areas where we actually have wells in each aquifer. This is kind of the same thing that Andy and I had previously recommended 5, 7 years ago about consolidating our DFC zones down to where we actually have wells rather than averaging the entire district. So this achieves the same thing, just comes at it from a different route. Based on the presentation we had from Bill Hutchison last year, the previously adopted DFCs, our current DFCs now, expressed in terms of remaining drawdown for the Simsboro, in the areas where we have those wells, it comes out to about 50% remaining artesian head over 50 years in the average across that area. So
58 for the Simsboro.
I'm sorry, yeah, 58.
50 for the Carrizo.
Okay. So taking those same DFCs, our currently adopted DFCs, expressing them differently and using them this cycle, that'd give us 50% remaining artesian head in at least 50% in both of those aquifers. Significantly more in the remaining 4 aquifers within the district. So that is point number 3 in this resolution. Point number 2 is something we've been pushing on, which is basically having a standardized method for interpreting the results from the model. If you put all the same numbers in, you should get the same results out. But there's one point in the interpretation of the data where depending upon the methods applied, you can get somewhat different results. Historically, that's been a problem mostly associated with poor documentation of methodology between the consultants. So we're really pushing to either have a programmatic method for dealing with that, or having a very well documented system for doing it by hand, if they're going to do it by hand, so that everybody can get the same results regardless of who runs the model. That will allow us hopefully to move away from needing variances. In the DFCs, historically, the variances were used to allow for differences between how our consultants might run the model and get the final result and how the Water Development Board might do it. In the last cycle, we saw there was some gamesmanship with how those variances were used. And so we're trying to push the post-processor or a rigorously defined method to get away from that problem. So that's point number 1 or number 2. Number 1 on working backwards is, applying a common methodology for consistency across the districts. What this really comes down to is a discussion of what should be included in, the pumping files that are used to support the final explanatory report. Our practice has always been to include everything that's permitted. And then if we need to make changes to those permits over time, we do that, represent curtailment. Other districts have tried either excluding permits or putting permits in for less than what they're currently at. And so basically artificially lowering their starting point in terms of productions. And so we're trying to push for an idea that everybody should be basically starting from the same point. You can arrive at different endpoints, and how you get there is your own district's business, but the initial starting point should be the same for everybody, which would be including all of your valid issued permits. And then you can modify the pumping files from there to get to your chosen endpoint. That also ties into point number 4, which is GCD should include all issued permits in all of their GAM runs, which is what I just touched on there. Point 5 is going back to, and this may be less successful, but asking the GCDs to reconsider funding a new socioeconomic model for evaluating socioeconomic impacts. I don't know that we'll get much headway on that, but it's something the board wants. And, again, we've taken it to the GMA several times, and we'll just continue to kind of hammer on that from this perspective. And then with the final point would be that, with the exception of this cycle where we're doing the 30, 35, and 5, all future explanatory reports, the cost should be split evenly between all 5 districts. So those are the main points and the main takeaways from this resolution. I did provide a copy of this draft resolution to the GMA last week, so that they would know this is what's up for consideration. This is what the board's, looking at, considering, and they can hopefully have some of those discussions back with their boards during their next meetings. Yes, ma'am.
Question. Do you expect that the wording about the 50% remaining average and the fact that curtailments might be in the future, will that be part of the explanatory report?
Yes, ma'am.
These points in the resolution, I don't think any of these points are new. We've already voted to keep the DFCs the same. We've already, went to the GMA 12 and tried to advocate for cost sharing of a socioeconomic model. We've already voted on 30% cost sharing. Jim has been a strong advocate of using a common software so that we don't have variances. So this is basically just a summarizing everything that Jim's been advocating, that we've been advocating, just summarizing it all into a resolution is what this does. And as Jim pointed out, it translates our current drawdown numbers and it uses the percent remaining as an alternative method of an expression of our drawdown, of our DFC.
I need a motion.
Yes,
I so move.
motion to accept the resolution by Director Asufi.
I'll second.
Second by Director Cole. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 4I, discussion, consideration, possible action on district sponsorship of Texas Alliance of Groundwater Districts 2025 Texas Groundwater Summit. So we at the governance committee, we have brought up sponsoring the Tag D Groundwater Summit that's upcoming in August. And so since it did involve money and expenditures, we needed to bring it to the full board to get everybody's approval. So we'd like to sponsor Tag D if possible. I think Claire has reached out to them. And so they're still kind of working what level of sponsorship is available.
They're, and I wouldn't have believed this if I hadn't heard it, but they limit their sponsorships. So we are effectively on a waiting list to see if they will accept us as sponsors, or if they need sponsors for the upcoming conference.
So we
So,
may not end up
Yeah, so we-
sponsoring,
so
but
we- shut up, I mean, you'll shut up and take my money, but they're, I guess they have principles and they're only taking so many sponsors. So as soon as we know if we're off of the wait list and then we can come back with an exact dollar value or some options. But for right now, we're just on the waiting list to see if they will accept us as sponsors this year.
So what we're looking for is just a motion to say, yes, that we agree as a board to, if we can, to sponsor the Tag D.
So move.
All right, motion by Director Textor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I heard second from Director Cole. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
With this motion that passed, we won't have to come back to us again.
It will depend entirely on the cost.
Yeah, because they have different levels of sponsorships. So I do expect that we will come back if we're approved, in terms of telling you all which level of sponsorship we're going to be pursuing and how much that cost would be. Because there are several different levels with different monetary.
What's the range?
I think the lowest tier is 5,000, but I may be mistaken on that. It's been a while since we've actually looked into it, so again, I'm waiting to hear from TAG what they're looking at for this summer. But I believe the lowest tier is within my purchasing authority, but I mean, if we wanted to sponsor the ballroom or something ridiculous like that, I would definitely come back to y'all for that approval.
Yeah, so depending on the sponsorship level, I would expect this matter may come back for your approval.
In the future, we would like to, rather than sponsoring, look at possibly sponsoring like student scholarships or something like that I think that'd be a better return on our money. But that's gonna require a little bit more time to get set up and get the policies in place for that. So in the short term, just a simple sponsorship is gonna be the quick solution for this summer. And that way we don't get nasty letters when Kay passes out our notepads and pens.
Thank you for bringing it.
You're welcome.
That's on the record. That's on the record. Okay. Okay, any other questions on that? Then moving on, item 4J, the legislative session updates. I see that Greg Ellis is online. I don't know if there are any updates, but if there are, Greg, this would be the opportunity to chime in, Mr. Ellis. Anything you'd like to touch on?
Oh, yeah, I got a couple of things I need to report to you. Number one, House Natural Resources Committee will be meeting at 8 a.m. on Wednesdays. So if you need to be there for any bills to be heard, you need to be there at 8 a.m. Note that the House almost always goes into session on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. So the committee will cover whatever bills that they can in the 2 hours that they have, and then they will recess until immediately following final adjournment of the House that day. So, if they're in until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the committee will come back at 3 o'clock to finish up their agenda. If the House is in until 10 p.m., they'll come back at 10 p.m. to finish up their agenda. The Senate committee, as I mentioned to you last time, is meeting at 8 a.m. on Mondays. When they start to hit some overflow, they will likely start to meet again on Thursday mornings as well. That's what he's always done. He's done for the last several sessions. He being Senator Perry, the chairman of that committee. I also need to report that both Representative Giddings and State Senator Kolkhorst will be filing bills for those sections of the Lost Pines bill that got vetoed last time, mainly the ones dealing with the production fees and to make the Enabling Act conform to the changes in 36-122 on export fees. So that's good news. It should be very uncontroversial. The bill passed both houses last time overwhelmingly, and fortunately got vetoed by the governor on the totally unrelated matter. In fact, the veto proclamation didn't even said the bill is fine, but it's not as important as vouchers for educating school children. So, assuming we don't get all the local bills vetoed again, we have a better chance of getting it passed and signed by the governor this time. And those should be filed shortly. In fact, I haven't even checked to see what's been filed today. I'm assuming it's going to be filed sometime. Both of those bills should be filed sometime this week. I'll be able to give you some bill numbers on it. There are now two different attorney's fees bills out there. One by DeRazio, one by De Ayala. And the second one is the only one that I've really heard is being pushed very hard. That one limits attorney's fees awards. Well, first off, it makes it loser pays. So the district would owe them attorney's fees if we were to lose the lawsuit. Secondly, it limits attorney's fees only if the case was filed that was groundless and filed in bad faith. And third, it would apply that to awards of attorney's fees for administrative proceedings in addition to court cases. Although it doesn't say in an administrative procedure who it is that's supposed to set the fees. In a court case, the judge has to determine what the reasonable and necessary fees are. Technically, in an administrative proceeding, that would be up to the board of directors. I don't think that's what they want to have happen, but that's under the current version of the bill. I think that's the only thing that makes any logical choice. It would have to be decided by the decider of the permit, which is the board of directors. So I think there are still several problems with that bill, and I'll be talking to the bill sponsor about that shortly to see if there's something we can work out. That bill, by the way, has nothing to do with Lost Pines. It is a statewide bill, but my understanding it's aimed at a different district and a different permit proceeding before that district. I think I sent out a list of bills that I'm following earlier this week. So you should have that. If you don't, I'll ask the staff to get that to you. And I'll be updating it again at the beginning of next week. The filing deadline is the middle of March. I think I said March. I think it's March 14th this time. And the first meeting of the House Natural Resources Committee and almost all of the substantive committees in the House start next week. The Appropriations Committee in the House has begun meeting, but the substantive committees are not meeting until next week. So next Wednesday is the first meeting of the House Natural Resources Committee. That's that's the organizational meeting, which means the substantive meetings are going to be, I think, at least running 3 weeks behind at this point. And that's going to end up killing. That's in the end. That's going to end up killing a lot of bills. I'm pretty sure. But we'll see. They may stay in committee hearings much longer to hear more bills. And we have a brand new chairman, of course, of the House committee. It is. I think I predicted this last time. It's Cody Harris, who represents an area of East Texas, just north of, right. It's kind of between Houston and Dallas, and it runs over to almost the Louisiana border. He does have a couple of groundwater conservation districts in his district, and he's always been very cooperative and a good person to work with in the past session. So I think it's going to be a good session. The House committee's got a lot of rookies on it, a lot of first timers who are serving on the committee, and really only. I mean, Cody Harris is chairing it. He has served on the committee in the past. He wasn't there last session, I don't think. The only returning members from last session, I believe, are Representative Kitzman and Representative Zwiener, if I remember correctly. And let me also point out that Representative Kitzman, who's on the committee, has also been elected as the co-chair of the Texas Water Caucus, which currently has about 80 House members and is expected to add another 15 or so senators as they make it a bicameral caucus. And the other co-chair, of course, will be Senator Perry. That concludes my report, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Ellis? Nope, I don't see any. Thank
Okay.
you, Greg. Thank you.
I'll stick around for the other resolution.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action. Oh, so we'll move on to item 4K. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on amended district legal services contract for the law firm of Graves, Doherty, Hearn, and Moody, PC. So this is just a yearly review of the contract. It was updated to include Mr. Saleh, that was not on there prior, and so that was updated. Bobby, do you have anything else that you would like to add on this?
Right, you covered most of it as part of the annual review. It added myself and Attorney Jeff Racho, we believe did some employment work for the district, and really everything else remains the same.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, as far as what the retainer covers, and it excludes things like employment and personnel matters, and I feel like over the last 2 years, we've sort of stumbled upon the need for RFPs and RFQs that are they seem sort of like templates to me, but then we get billed by the hour for them. And I just wonder what your thinking is on just sort of matter of fact, things. We review the auditor every 5 years and all that. So that will be always considered a special project and not the scope of the general counsel. Because some of these things sort of seem sort of scope of general counsel to me, like, hey, could you look at this RFP? I don't know.
Right, and we can review that scope. I can get with my co-counsel.
Okay,
we can look back at it, and I believe we spoke with Mr. Hernandez about when there are other special projects coming to the district.
I'm just not
saying,
clear on
right.
special projects, and it says, that an agreement will be made about the scope of the work and a budget for the work, but I don't think we usually do that. But I mean, for instance, on a contested hearing like Rambo, that's a special project, right? I mean, when it
It's
became
like
contested.
litigation. Yes, ma'am.
But you'd have to engage in that. You have to start working on that before we can sit around and say, oh, here's our agreement and budget. In fact, it's probably impossible to do a budget up front, right? So is that usually just y'all talk about it on the phone or something and say, hey, we're
This is
venturing
coming,
off
yeah,
the
this-
reservation.
Right, and so I see what you're saying, where it's kind of a blend. Let me get with my co-counsel on it.
Okay,
We can
well,
look at the
I
contract
think
and
it's
kind
good
of make
for
yeah.
everybody, for everything to be pretty clear.
it more defined.
Yeah.
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
sounds good.
So I'm hearing that we should just table this item for next month, and then I'll let looking to
Do that.
close?
Yeah, there are a couple of things, yes.
Okay, so we'll table this item K, and
Thank you.
we'll have it on the agenda, and then that'll give time for, legal counsel to, make appropriate changes if needed.
Out of curiosity, does it need to be incorporated? Does it need to be in the contract per se, or could it be incorporated as a separate document, kind of laying out what falls under each umbrella that?
Or
that's
maybe we
referenced
can
in the-
just talk about it and we can end up signing this agreement. I'm just saying,
Okay.
when I read over it, I just had a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify what the, what the best solution would be.
Yeah, I guess it could be separate. It doesn't have to be part of the contract, but let's iron out those details
Talk about
first.
it instead of
I just want to make sure that we all come back with a solution that's
Sure,
what y'all were expecting.
Yeah,
okay,
I
yeah.
think that would be acceptable if we had to just document it separate, but let's iron that out.
That's good.
All right, so we're tabling item 4K. All right, 4L, committee reports, possible board discussion, no action will be taken. Financial Services Committee did not meet, so, my governance committee, notes are in the packet. We discussed, today's agenda and reviewed the items in preparation of today's agenda. Let's see, the Rambo, order, the, resolutions, committee assignments, status on Darling Industries, we're still working on the Jim and legal counsel still working on the penalty schedule details. The half database demonstration we worked on, and then, so an item that I did mention at the governance committee was that I had a conversation at last year's TAG D with Texas Water Development Board. They asked to provide our database data, and I told them if they could please wait until January when we updated the database and then give them the updated data. I didn't want to give them data that was going to be old, and so this might be another task that we need to assign to LRE to look into getting our updated data over to the Texas Water Development Board. And then the other item, let's see, do I see up here, submitting a presentation proposal to TAG D. So TAG D had sent out, offers for submission to submit a proposal for their presentation in August. I did submit a proposal, to TAG D, regarding the district's, initiatives with LRE and all the great science work that we've done in the last 3 years with LRE, and they've agreed to co-present and so I submitted that. The deadline was the end of this week, so that I put in that proposal for the presentation. It'd be a co-presentation with LRE and the district. And I think the theme of that proposal is going to be something on the order of like science for better management. And it'll review all the great science work that we've done over the last 3 years. And then we start planning for next month. A budget amendment for 200,000 to add 200,000 for the programs like a rainwater collection program, for example. Aquifer training, we heard last month that the folks wanted to get an aquifer training 101. So ideally we'll have LRE give that presentation either March or April. We're still working to roll out email accounts, all the directors. And then next month, Jim plans to update us on our last fall's monitoring well updates and the 2024 management plan goals. All right, that's it for the governance committee. Infrastructure committee has not yet met. Education committee has an update. Is Claire or Cheryl? Claire. Claire. Education committee update. Hello.
It's on? Awesome. All right, so we are creating a porosity model, which hopefully in the aquifer presentation that you will have in the next couple months, you'll be able to understand that in depth. But this will be an engaging porosity model for all ages, we are partnering with Aqua in making this. I reached out to universities, to see if they could help us make it. And Aqua decided they're gonna help us. So I'm really excited for this. It's originally, we're gonna send it to the Giddings Public Library. It's gonna be a temporary, installment there. My goal is to shop it around to all the different public libraries in this region, in our district, and be used at different tabling events, as education. With Aqua, I'm really excited. We're producing some videos with them this year. One of them is a rainwater harvesting how-to video. The other one, which I'm really excited about, we are creating a set of videos that are targeted at students. So it's going to be really quick information, how students learn on TikTok and all that good stuff. And each video is going to meet a certain Texas education and knowledge standard. And so we're hoping that this will be really good for the students in our region. We had the rainwater harvesting workshop earlier this month, last month, I don't remember. Okay, it was in January. And I was really excited. We had 8 rainwater harvesting barrel systems created. Some were in Bastrop County, some were in Lee County, so I'm very excited about that. Unfortunately, not as many people ended up showing as I wish. It was cold and flu season, so people were just calling in saying, we can't come, I'm sick. Or they couldn't find a rain barrel, and that was BYOB, bring your own barrel, so they couldn't come for that reason either. I had a water conservation workshop at Bastrop High School. It was awesome, you guys. Specifically, it was with the student council at Bastrop High School. I was blown away with the ideas that they had. They actually went around and did a water audit of the school. So where's water being used on campus, and is it being used efficiently? So all the students did that, and then they actually made a water conservation campaign plan for each of these targeted areas that they found. And I just, I went into it really not knowing what to expect from these kids, and they blew me away with their ideas. And the student council president said, we'll follow up and let you know what we have accomplished. So that made me even more excited that, like, oh wow, they're making these plans and they're gonna do something about it. So that was really awesome. And I hope to bring this workshop to different student councils. Maybe not even at high school. We could even look at middle school student councils as well. That was really cool. On February 7th, I tabled at the Lee County Wildlife Association annual banquet. And that was good. Got to meet a lot of people in Lee County. Some of the people I'd already met already, but that was really good. A reminder, we have the photo voice contest. The submission deadline for that is June 30th. So this combines photography and storytelling. The theme is thank you well. So why are you thankful for your water well? It doesn't necessarily have to be your water well, but that's the theme. Finally, our K-12 art contest. This is due March 31st, so we have about a month left. This year's theme is Every Drop Counts. All public schools in Bastrop County and Lee County have been notified. I also wanted to say that I had a phone call meeting with the communications director for Bastrop ISD. And she was just asking about the program, what it is. And she actually, like that next week, she had a meeting with all of the principals. It was a district-wide principal meeting. And so she told me that she was going to let all the principals know at that meeting that they needed to participate. So that's really exciting. Hopefully we'll have high percentage of participation, at least in Bastrop ISD. But all the school districts have been notified. Okay. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, for the photo voice contest,
Yes.
the theme, can you make that more Texas?
What do you mean?
Well, instead of thank you, well, thank you.
That's it.
You
Thank
have
you.
to- you have to add it, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like a picture
All
of a
right.
whale.
And last, the management committee has not met yet, but Nick is gonna get that started soon. So we'll move on to item 4M, the general manager's report. No action will be taken. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Unfortunately, a lot of my reports already, well, I guess fortunately, because we have food waiting, a lot of my reports already been covered through other agenda items. Drought conditions have actually not changed at all from last month. I triple checked and walked away, came back and checked again, and the numbers for Lee and Bastrop County are exactly where they were for January. So basically, we're in a better shape than we were in the fall, but we're still, we're starting to run a little bit behind in terms of annual rainfall for January and February. Skip over the GMA 12, so we've covered that. Groundwater District Summer Conference, we covered. So we do have two somewhat new things that have come in. The MD Anderson has contacted us and let us know that they have essentially they filed with TCEQ that they have ceased usage of their water well on their science park near Smithville. So we are we'll need to go through the process of basically not revoking the permit, but invalidating that permit. And as we go through that, we'll work with the attorneys and see if we need to develop new rules, because right now, most of our rules for revocation of permits are relatively hostile. So making sure that the rules, we have rules in place that would allow for a more gentle surrender of an operating permit for somebody that wants to give one up. Along the same note, Luminant contacted us and asked how long they have to keep sending us reports of zero production, because they had ceased all of their mining and reclamation work north of Elgin. And so they've officially sent us a letter stating that all reclamation and all mining operations have ceased. And those wells were permitted through Railroad Commission. They're not our wells, but they reported to us as essentially a courtesy. So since they have ceased that production, we'll be taking them off of our monthly and annual production reports. So all the work and all the production around the Three Oaks mine is now completed. So, or has been completed.
Did they plug those wells in?
The wells, I have not seen plugging reports on them. So the wells are still on the property, but they're not currently in operation.
But how do we know then if they start using them again?
That's a good question.
And MD Anderson, the same thing. I mean,
We don't have a way to compel people to plug wells. I mean, because you think,
we should.
well, but if you think about MD Anderson, that is an asset for that property. So we'd have to look at updating rules to compel plugging for wells that have been surrendered. But right now, we don't have any way to go about that.
That's weird. Are they trying to sell that property?
Yeah.
I don't know that they know what they're gonna do
As
with
soon
it.
as they
There's a
wouldn't
big
keep the
for sale
permit
sign.
and try to
Right.
sell the permit. I mean,
There's a
sell
big
it
for
with the
sale
permit.
sign, but I mean, question, if they cap it, can they be reopened, or do we have to drill a new well?
So capping is a temporary process. Plugging is permanent. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so capping is plugging.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, if you, at that point, at that point in time, you actually are taking away an asset from the property.
Right.
Whereas,
No, I
yeah.
understand that.
Excuse me, Jim, there's a question.
I was just gonna ask, is this TCQ to deregister the PWS system? Is that why
that's my
they're looking
understanding.
to?
That's my
Okay, so that
understanding.
can be separate from the well.
Yes,
They could still operate the well and keep a permit, but not have a PWS.
correct, yeah. But
What's a PWS?
public water supply. So they were self-supplying water to their campus. So they decertifying their public water supply and have stated that they no longer will operation at the park it ceased years ago. So you just need a way to kind of clean that up, because we don't have a voluntary surrender mechanism that I'm aware of. Let's see. We do not have any more pending permits, than what were in the process last month, which would be Aqua and SLR properties. I have had some calls that indicate there may be a few more municipal, industrial type projects coming to the Bastrop County area. Nothing's been filed yet. It's all just early discussions with, well drillers and, engineers. So we may have something in the near future, but for right now, we're still just working on those two permits. With regard to upcoming meetings, GMA 12 will meet again on April 23rd at the Post Oak offices in Milano. Region K met last week and approved the initially prepared plan for Region K. So that kicks off a narrow window for conducting public hearings. The first IPP hearing for Region K will be April 17th at the LCRA Center in Austin. There will be a second hearing on May 7th, tentatively at the LCRA offices in LaGrange. A third hearing is in the works, but has not been scheduled yet up in Burnett County. So that'll be the 3 public hearings required for the IPP within Region K. Region G also approved their initially prepared plan. It has submitted that to the state, but I have not seen hearing dates scheduled for Region G yet. So as those hearing dates get scheduled, we'll let y'all know about those as well. And with that, I'd be happy to address any other questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dunn? Thanks. Right, next item is item 4N. Consideration of future agenda items. As I mentioned earlier, we're planning for next month that Jim will be providing his update on the 2024 management plan goals. Jim also plans to provide us an update on the 2024 fall DFC well monitoring efforts that occurred last fall. Also, we're trying to get in that budget amendment for the new programs, the rainwater harvesting program. Expect possibly up to like 200,000 budget amendment we're looking at. And then we're also planning for either March or April at the Aquifer Training 101. So I've got those 4 items at least. Anything else that folks would like to add?
I just thought of a question. Have we heard anything on ASR?
Not a word.
Well, a lot of the people that were working on it kind of dispersed.
Yeah.
Moved away. But I haven't heard anything, just curious.
It's still included in the draft Region K plan,
Right.
but nothing else has been mentioned about it, so I'm not sure where they're at with that project.
But there's so many bills in the legislature, nobody wants ASR in their area.
All right, item 4O. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on the district board meeting calendar. Anyone with any changes or anything on the calendar? I don't have any. Seeing none. All right, then move on to item 4P. Setting the date and location of the next meeting. The next meeting will be here in Giddings, Wednesday, March 19th. We'll go back to our 3rd Wednesdays of the month, 3:30 p.m., Wednesday, March 19th. With that. Oh, yeah, so we'll, right after this meeting, we have an open house, folks, so we'll have some refreshments and snacks right after this meeting, so please join us. And so with that, we will adjourn at 4:58 p.m. Thank you.